As a standalone film, Venom looks to be a rip-roaring ride as we follow the anti-hero on a solo origin story adventure. No matter how good the movie stands on its own, fans have spent months speculating whether the film and its titular character will have a connection to the MCU and become an official part of it. Before we begin, subscribe to CBR and ring that bell to join our notification squad so you never miss a video. Without further ado, here's our theory on how Venom will be connected to the MCU. The character of Venom is a fan favorite in the Spider-Man universe through both comics and animation, but when it comes to cinematic versions, fans didn't quite get what they were looking for in the overstuffed Spider-Man 3 way back in 2007. The Andrew Garfield-led Amazing Spider-Man movies avoided Venom altogether, and fans have lacked a proper big-screen version of the character with development and personality true to his comic book origins. Well, things are about to change with the release of Venom on October 5th. Sony has decided to branch off of the 900-plus characters it owns from the Marvel library and deliver a new film separate from their Tom Holland Spider-Man franchise. While the idea of a Venom film sounds great, you can't deny the longtime connection and story arc Venom has had with Spider-Man. Eddie Brock's origin story has been naturally intertwined with Peter Parker, but this isn't the case for the feature-length film. With Spider-Man off doing his own thing in London, Venom is pretty much on his own to raise havoc in the streets while Brock learns the true powers of the alien symbiote that takes over his body. Venom may work well as a solo movie, but it's pretty clear Sony has bigger plans for the future, and these plans include the character in the MCU. With Venom isolated in his own film, Sony is pretty much keeping any connection to the MCU under wraps. Sony already found major success by adding Spider-Man to the MCU, and you'd think they'd want to cash in and do the same thing with Venom. As the MCU closes out Phase 3 with the Avengers 4, they're going to need to fill in some open areas on their character roster, and an already established Venom will fit the bill nicely. As Venom was going through the developmental process, there were already hints that he was joining the MCU, but both Marvel and Sony tried to cover up their tracks and deny statements they made. Back in the summer of 2017, Amy Pascal, the head of Sony Pictures, stated that Venom and future films following heroes like Black Cat and Silver Sable would all be connected to Spider-Man's MCU universe. Of course, she was sitting next to Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige, and his reaction to the statement showcased a little shock and terror. In the following days, both studio heads tried clearing things up by saying Venom would not be a part of the MCU, but there's clearly more to this than meets the eye. Marvel Studios is known for keeping a lot of secrets and withholding information, so the inclusion of Venom in the MCU may be one of those things. Because this film is produced fully by Sony, Marvel Studios may want to see some positive box office reviews before opening their doors to the anti-hero. Even though the initial comments were backtracked, Sony is clearly setting something up where Spider-Man and Venom have a future on-screen together, and a true cinematic clash between the two is something people have been wanting for years. Spider-Man 3 rushed the battle and included other characters like the Green Goblin and Sandman. We don't want to rush climax to a film. We want to see a long and drawn-out brawl at the movies and not just comic book panels or a video game. The next Spider-Man film will release in 2019 and is entitled Far From Home. Besides his appearance in other MCU movies, Sony has one more solo movie planned for the hero in the future. With the scheduling of both Venom and Far From Home around 6 months apart from each other, the timeline is set up perfectly to see the two characters come face to face in a crossover movie together. Even if the Venom solo film is great, it doesn't make much sense to build a franchise around the character, as Sony dances around the exclusion of Spider-Man. The future of Venom will feel a little empty if the wall crawler isn't included, and the potential money involved will keep Sony fighting to have the two characters clash on the big screen. While there's Carnage and some other prominent characters involved in Venom comic books and storylines, the franchise would need a big name to really capture the attention of audiences around the world and make the films worthy of the price of admission. Even if the Peter Parker version of Spider-Man doesn't take on Venom, maybe another version like Miles Morales could fill the role while still offering a connection to the MCU. As seen in Spider-Man Homecoming, the character of Miles was already mentioned, and expanding on this further will help the MCU branch out into the Venom films. Another big sign that Venom will be connected to the MCU is the film's final rating. Venom had all the signs of being a dark and moody comic book film with the rare R rating, much like other movies like Deadpool and Logan. Early trailers showcased a ton of violence, and all the potential Venom had when viewing restraints were lifted for the film. While many people were looking forward to the R rating and a red band trailer, shockwaves were sent through the comic book community as the movie was officially confirmed to have a PG-13 rating. Of course, the initial question was, do we not get to see Venom bite the criminal's head off in the small convenience store? Once we got over our need to see some hardcore Venom gore, the next question question became, why would Sony go with this rating? Well, if you're connecting to the MCU, the answer is plain and simple. There's never been an R-rated movie in the 10 years of the MCU, and if Venom wants to be included in the mix, then the violent anti-hero had to clean things up a bit. A large portion of Spider-Man fans are younger children, and they would be pretty disappointed not getting the chance to see the Spider-Man villain on the big screen. An R-rated Venom wouldn't exactly jive with a PG-13 Spider-Man, so the rating isn't reflecting so much of the current film, but Sony's future slate of films featuring Venom. If Sony wanted Venom to be in the MCU, they may have been forced to go with the PG-13 rating to help fit in with the standards of Marvel Studios. Along with the PG-13 rating, many fans have wondered how Venom could connect to the MCU, considering the event of the Avengers Infinity War. Will we see a scene where characters turn to dust? Will anyone reference Thanos? Will we see a video of the New York City space invasion on the news? The truth is, it doesn't matter. Venom may be coming out on October 5th, 2018, but that doesn't mean the movie is set in the same timeline. Venom can easily exist within the same realm as other Marvel movies without even referencing the deadly snap that occurred at the end of Infinity War. Plus, keeping the events of Infinity War out of Venom will help the movie stand more on its own and not feel so tied down to the Avengers story. The snap may not have taken place yet in Venom's timeline, or it could have already been resolved. Giving the characters who disappeared in the future of the MCU, we know the events of the Thanos finger snap will somehow be reversed in the Avengers 4, thanks to rumors and on-set pictures. It looks as if time travel will have something to do with it. So if Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man head back in time to stop Thanos before the snap, then Venom can still exist in the MCU without showing the direct impact of his finger snap. As the timeline changes, Venom would exist in a world where the snap and the impact from it never even happened. Also, the film could follow in the footsteps of Ant-Man and the Wasp by ignoring Thanos' reign of terror altogether, right up until the post-credit scenes. Maybe we'll see Venom turn to dust in the middle of the credits, and the character will get revived again once Avengers 4 gets released. Just imagine how epic a clash between Venom and Thanos would be as the two battle it out through Wakanda, in the streets of New York, or even on a distant planet. Speaking of the post-credit scenes, this will be the most ideal time to confirm whether Venom is actually a true part of the MCU. Currently, Sony is referring to their Marvel movies as Sony's universe of Marvel characters. But we all know the SUMC doesn't really roll off the tongue. The name itself could just be a cloak to cover up MCU connections. Or it could even be considered a spin-off branch of the MCU, much like Netflix shows like Iron Fist, Luke Cage, and Daredevil. Keeping them all within the same universe really keeps the options open and supplies a lot of leeway when it comes to developing films in the future. So it'll be up to the post-credit scenes to truly confirm whether we're watching a branch of the MCU or if we have to start incorporating the SUMC into our daily vocabulary. While many of us will try to enjoy the epic 2 hours and 20 minutes of runtime, others will be itching to see the post-credit scenes. They're often the most anticipated parts of a Marvel movie, and the same will happen with Venom. By the time the first screenings are over, news will leak over any possible post-credit action. But what is exactly in store? Will we get some secretly filmed footage of Tom Holland as Spider-Man? Maybe Eddie Brock will see a Spider-Man story on the news about his time in London. Or they could even throw us for a huge swerve and include some type of MCU hero we never expected. Eddie Brock may be using his reporting skills to infiltrate Matt Murdock or investigate something at one of Tony Stark's buildings in New York City. Either way, the inclusion of the post-credit scenes will likely be the huge confirmation fans are waiting for when it comes to including Venom in the MCU. And, like many other Marvel movies, if the scene is included, then this will be what all fans are talking about in the weeks and years to come. Of course, Venom isn't the only Spider-Man movie coming out in the fourth quarter of 2018. On December 14th, and just in time for the holiday season, Sony's animated Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse will hit theaters. The story branches far away from Tom Holland's MCU Spider-Man. Naturally, the animated film doesn't appear to have any direct connections to the MCU, but one of the biggest plotline points to the potential connections to both Venom and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Miles Morales is the star character of this animated Spider-Man, but we already know there'll be many other versions of Spider-Man appearing. If there are so many Spider-Man characters in the film, then we may get to see the multiple villains as well, with Eddie Brock's Venom being one of them. Tom Holland could even travel from his dimension for a fun cameo and possible indirect link between the MCU Spider-Man and Venom. We know it sounds absurd and this is an extremely far-fetched connection, but fans are grasping at any way for Venom to be included in the MCU. The worst-case scenario would be a one-and-done situation where Venom does his solo movie, drifts off into the abyss, and is never heard from again until another reboot down the line. But Sony seems to be extremely smart about this, focusing on building the character first and then mixing him into the whole Spider-Man and MCU fold. Allowing Venom to flourish and grow with his own backstory will make all the difference, especially compared to the crowded efforts to introduce villains in the past. Both The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3 featured way too many villains, and now Venom has his own movie where he can shine, stand out, and grow his fan base. Whether it's during the post-credit scenes of Venom, or even in Spider-Man Far From Home in 2019, there's no doubt Sony is finding a way to connect Venom to the MCU and use the whole universe as a great way to bring the anti-hero some big cinematic success. Just like we saw with Captain America, the First Avenger, Iron Man, and Thor, Venom will serve as the ideal origin story before branching out like a whole batch of symbiotes sneaking out of a top-secret lab. Now don't worry about the PG-13 rating, just enjoy the movie for what it is and hope you get to see more of Venom on the big screen and hopefully in a great battle against Spider-Man in the near future. There you have it. Do you want Venom to be a part of the MCU? Are you excited to see the upcoming Venom movie? Let us know in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe to CBR for more videos like this one. Thanks for watching.